Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here out of Bart Kaufman Field, stealing one of the radio booths usually used by Mr. Jeremy Gray and Mr. Greg Murray. Indiana not survives, that's a really bad word, pounds Youngstown State 10-2 in its first NCAA tournament game of the year in the first game of the Bloomington Regional. IU basically could not have asked for much better than what happened today, more or less. Yeah, Tracy Smith obviously made I guess you'd call it a risk to decide not to start Joey Donato, to not go with his ace, instead to kind of make it a bullpen day. But didn't dig very deep into it. Opened with Scott Effross, who was a high school starter, had not started since he'd been at Indiana, but had been in a lot of long relief situations. Was obviously capable of extending a little bit, not necessarily a guy that just pitches 1 inning or 2 innings, but it can go 3, 4, 5, and has shown that in the past. And got 4 innings out of him, 3 2/3 out of Evan Bell. Even got a really good inning and a third from Will Corson Carr, and they were able to do that just because they were able to jump out in front of them. Didn't ask a lot from Effross. Smith said he would have gone with him for 7 innings if need be, but managed to use him but not waste him. He can come back. He threw 58 pitches. Doesn't probably obviously won't be available tomorrow, but certainly should be by Sunday. Obviously Indiana will advance that far, they will be playing in a game Sunday because they won this one, regardless of what happens tomorrow. But they can keep Joey Donato for Saturday. They still have Christian Morris around. Past that, they've got both of their aces, and they've already won their first game in the winners bracket. So huge for Indiana on a lot of levels there. Obviously, the reason they were able to do that is they just jumped out on Youngstown State offensively. You look at this Youngstown State team, you looked at the stats, you had every reason to believe that Indiana was capable of this because Youngstown State really couldn't get anybody out all year. They had a 6.90 ERA, teams were hitting .323 against them, so there was all kinds of reasons to think Indiana's going to be able to jump on them too because so many other people have. But Youngstown State also only gave up, I think, 11 runs in 4 games. That was 13 runs in 4 games in the Horizon League tournament. Basically, we're a whole, complete, total different team than they had been all year. Had an ERA of, I think all their 4 starters, none of them have an ERA for the year under 5. But nobody gave up more than 2 runs in the Horizon League tournament. So you had to wonder, okay, is this maybe, has this team really figured it out? Have their pitchers figured it out? Maybe you're going to see a totally different team. But you didn't. Basically, Indiana just jumped all over them. Especially was very, very aggressive early in counts. Got after Jared White, especially. Started just really looking to hit fastballs early. Not let them get ahead. Not sit around and wait to kind of work walks and stuff like that. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But White was throwing enough, kind of elevated pitches that they could really get into, and they whacked him around a good bit. The first inning, they kind of got lucky. Dustin DeMuth got sort of a bloop double. Not really a bloop. It was really high, basically high pop-up that came down in between Youngstown State's center fielder, second baseman, and right fielder, all just kind of in the middle. There was basically one spot that DeMuth could get it to fall, and it did for a 2-run double. But after that, they just really launched. Sam Travis in the third inning. Kyle Schwarber opened the inning by crushing a triple to the right center field gap. Travis came up. Both of those guys swung on first pitches, and Travis just hit a moonshot to center field. Made it 5-0 at the time. They tacked on another run that inning and went up 6-0. In the fifth, they kind of got lucky there too. Youngstown State should have been out of the inning. Tim O'Connor hit a ground ball that should have been a double play, but that was misplayed. Casey Rodriguez then grounds to second, and that could have been a double play, but Rodriguez, beat it out at first to keep the inning alive. And of course, Kyle Schwarber made them pay just by launching one to right center field. That's his 13th of the year. That's obviously what Kyle Schwarber does. What Sam Travis does, they both just crush the ball, and really took obviously all any amount of confidence away from Youngstown State. Obviously that was kind of their sort of welcome to the NCAA tournament moment. To see obviously a couple All-Americans just crush the ball. And so that obviously put Indiana in a good enough position that they could pull Effross. They were already in that position before Schwarber hit the home run. But that was key. But he had to pitch well enough to make it stand up, and he looked really good. I think he's had a couple games recently where he hasn't been as electric as you've seen him. His numbers haven't necessarily affected that. He's been able to kind of get away with some things. Came into this one 4-2 with a 1.65 ERA, but tonight just really established the fastball well. Was hitting about 92 to 94. Pretty good control on it. Not perfect. Missed on a couple of those, but as Kyle Schwarber put it, controlled the outside of the plate well enough Was kind of hitting the black there, and then also working some changeups and curveballs out there, getting some guys to chase. Youngstown State wasn't necessarily bad in terms of discipline, but he got a couple of those, got a couple of those pitches. Got them to chase, got them to swing at some stuff that was maybe out of the zone and breaking out of the zone. Had 4 strikeouts that way. Only gave up 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk. Evan Bell came in. He was the guy I kind of thought was going to get this, or could get this started. Once Smith even mentioned the idea of Scott Effross, I kind of thought that was the direction he was going to go. It seems like when he kind of gets a sort of out there idea, kind of unconventional move, he sort of sits on it, and that's when you kind of know he's going to do it. But Bell looked pretty good, I thought, against in Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. Looked decent today. Still has moments where he's missing outside with the fastball a good bit. But when he brings it in there, he's got a lot of good speed on it. Good breaking balls to work with it. Good downward plane. Obviously, he's a 6'9" guy, and had a pretty solid outing. He hasn't been used a ton this year, and despite the fact that he's got that kind of endurance, he's a guy that you can project, that has the frame that you can look at and say, maybe that's Aaron Slager. So it's the same kind of frame. Maybe you could see the same sort of thing that you saw from him. Is just obviously a really, really tall guy who can kind of just sling it on a downward plane. And he started to figure that out. But they didn't go with the start with him this time. But he still gets 3 2/3 decent innings, scattered 5 hits. And Will Corson-Carr was a pretty big story. I thought came in, pitched an inning, a third, scoreless, doesn't give up a hit, had hit a guy. It looked like he started to lose it a little bit. Threw 3 straight balls after that. Fought back. I think he ended up with a strikeout. On that same at bat after falling behind 3-0. Was really, I think, big for his confidence, just because he just hasn't been able to find it at all, control-wise. Not just apparently in games, but also in bullpens as well. But tonight, you could tell it was big for his confidence. Saw a big fist pump from him after he got that last strikeout. Threw 14 of his 22 pitches for strikes. And I think the time that I kind of knew that he was in trouble this season earlier was in Morehead State game, where I think he threw 23 pitches. I think only 9 of them were strikes. Hit the backstop on at least 2 of those. Just didn't look like he had a real concept of where the zone was. But today really did. Changed his delivery a good bit. It's just kind of dropped it down a little bit. It's a little bit more of a sidearm thing, and just his whole motion is a little bit different than you're used to from him, but still has some pretty good-looking stuff. And he can be important, even if he doesn't start. And I don't know that I see him, in a situation like that. You never know. Tracy Smith might, just take a risk, but he's got some pretty established guys, obviously, especially at 1-2 with Donato and Morris. But even if he's just a guy that you can throw in there to get you an out, a left-hander you can get a guy out or get through an inning late in the game, especially if you're if they make it to Omaha and you're talking about more games, you're talking about more innings that are open there. If he's in a situation where he just has to get a left-hander out, that's important. Again, even if it's just one batter, it matters because they really don't have a lot of lefties in the pen right now, especially with Cordy having been moved up. Sullivan Stadler also have been working at a midweek guy, and they can still move him back to the pen. But it still matters to add somebody else who's a left-handed option out of the bullpen. But they got through that, and despite opening with the reliever, they only used 3 relievers, only one of which has been sort of a constant. Bell's kind of been iffy, and Corson-Carr hadn't recorded an out since April 30th. So Luke Harrison doesn't have to pitch tonight. Thomas Belcher doesn't have to pitch tonight. Jake Kelser doesn't have to pitch tonight. Those 3 guys all totally saved, and Effross is still available going forward. So that helps a lot because, obviously tomorrow night they're going to go with Joey Donato against Stanford. And obviously he's a guy that usually gets you through a bunch of innings, is capable of taking you 7 or 8. If need be, can go the whole 9. Obviously, we've seen that certainly with the 136 pitch outing against Louisville last year. So he's capable. So that makes it that makes a difference. He can get them by. They've got a lot of options going forward. It is not going to be an easy one. Stanford's no joke. This is not. I kind of looked at him at first as sort of analogous to Florida, and that's way off. Florida last year, and that's way off. Stanford's got experienced older hitters combined with some younger pitchers, and they beat up on Indiana State today 8-1. Got a great outing from Cal Quantrill. He was exceptional in a complete game. Gave up 1 run, but otherwise was really, really good. And Alex Blandino is absolutely a guy who can hurt you. He's a top 200 Baseball America guy. Austin Slater is as well. He can certainly hurt you. Hoffpair is the right fielder who hits after those guys, Zach Hoffpair, and those three guys are really tough to deal with. And there's some other guys in the order that can also burn you. And they're going to go with a left-hander, John Hochstetter. I'm not totally sure what he throws exactly, but obviously Indiana's had some tough times with really good left-handers and also with left-handers who just throw a bunch of junk. So it's not that's not going to be an easy one for them. That's a really solid team. They really put it together late in the year, had a really top-heavy schedule where they dealt with some teams like Oregon State and Washington, and really got kind of knocked back by those guys and really started to find it when they played the middle to bottom half of the Pac-12. But you saw apparently just better play from them as well. Cal Quantrill was a freshman. You could see that he's grown up a lot. There's not a lot of teams that beat him today. So that's a legit team. Stanford will probably be the best team I think most talented team they've played in a regional setting yet. Certainly Florida State was a better team last year than Stanford is now, but it's still a team that's going to be difficult for them to get, and it helps a lot that they'll be able to go with the NATO with their ace tomorrow. So really best situation that Indiana could have come up with after this one. All right, thanks so much, guys.